Hey, it's Angie at Block 81, and today I'm going to walk you through my starter setup for Craft CMS and show you how to get a project up and running with all of my essentials pre-configured. All right, so before we start, you're going to need a local development environment. I personally use DDEV. You're also going to want Composer installed on your machine and basic familiarity with Craft CMS. In addition to that, here's just a rough overview of what we're going to be setting up. Obviously, we're going to be setting up Craft with the database. We're going to be cloning the starter project that I have. That's going to include essential plugins that I use on every project, starter templates that I have some boilerplate code on. Additionally, the pre-built content builder using a matrix field. The folder structure, I'm going to go over that a little bit, and briefly, if there's time, I'll go over the CSS and JavaScript organization. Okay, so why a starter project? So after building, I don't know how many craft sites over the years, I found myself repeating the same setup process. And as you can imagine, that takes a lot of time. This starter eliminates that repetitive work so I can focus on the more important parts of the project, such as the design, the content structure, and the authoring experience, which are very important for client success. So I have my particular starter on GitHub. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab this URL. There's probably a different way to do this, but this is how I do it every time. So then in Tower, so I use Tower for Git. So you can see I have my craft starter already opened up here, but I don't want to use that. So I'm going to create a new one. And we're going to clone. And I'm going to call, or here's the remote URL, and I'm going to clone it to a different spot, a different folder. So we'll just call it, Craft Demo. So we'll put that in there and then clone it. Okay, so that is done. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. And that's all we need to do as far as Git and Tower are concerned. And we can get rid of this as well. So now I'm going to open up VS Code. And specifically, I'm going to grab from the Finder, I want to grab the craft demo, and I'm going to drag it into VS Code, which is in my doc. And there we go. Okay, so here, I want to open up the terminal. So you can do this from the terminal within VS Code, or obviously you can use the default terminal with your system or whatever you want to use. I'm just going to use it here just because it's easier to do it from one place. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start DDEV. Now, you might be wondering, how am I going to start DDEV if I haven't really configured it? And the answer to that is the starter template or the starter repo already has the DDEV configuration, which you can see up here in this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and just run DDEV start. And that's going to start up. I just realized I need to change something here. So we're going to go into the DDEV folder and change this to craft demo. And just for good measure, I'm going to change PHP to 8.3. Everything else can stay the same. So I'll save that. And I'm going to clear this and run DDEV start again. So now it's going to start up. Okay, so here I can use Option and click to open up the URL that we're given. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And that, by default for me, opens in Firefox. So you can see that we have issues going on here. Obviously, things aren't working. So let's get that out of the way. The reason for that is because we haven't set up the .env file. We haven't run Composer install, and we haven't imported the database. Okay, so you can see that there's a .env.example file in here. So I want to duplicate that to create the proper .env file. So we'll just rename it to .env. You can see that we're going to need to add in the craft app ID, the security key, and the database information. Now, the rest of this can, for the most part, is going to stay the same, but we'll go through it every bit in a second here. But before we fill all of this out, we actually need to run Composer install. So I'm going to go DDEV Composer install. and that gets everything going that we need. All right, now what I'm going to run is ddev php craft setup. Now you could do that, but it's not going to work because the database isn't quite set up right just yet. So this is what you would typically run if you're starting from scratch. So instead I'm going to run ddev php craft setup / security key. And that gives us the security key there. And then I'm going to do a similar command, ddev php craft setup / app ID. And that gives us the app ID. Now, for the database connections, because I'm using ddev, the server is going to be db. I'm going to copy that because the database name is also db, the user is also db, and the password is also db. That's just the way that ddev works. All right, so that's working there. We're going to leave this alone. If you have questions on any of this in the .env file, I highly recommend you look at the craft documentation. But the other thing that we want to set up here is the site settings. So for the site name, we'll just do craft demo. And the primary site URL, if we head back in here, it's going to be this. So grab that. And then the base URL for the assets is going to be the URL plus uploads. Now, if we head over into public, you'll see that there's no uploads folder, but Craft creates that once you start uploading images and whatnot. And for the base path, it's actually going to be, I'm going to grab this here from my cheat sheet. For ddev, it's going to be something like, oops, that's not it. It's going to be something like this. So I'm just going to type it out. So var www html public uploads. Okay, so that's all ready to go. So now if we head into the site, if you've guessed that it's not going to work, you're correct. So if I refresh, it's not working here. And even if we go to the back end, it's actually asking me to install Craft. Now, the reason it's doing that is because we haven't imported the database. So in my local setup for this starter, I have the database included here. So this is the Craft demo. So if we go over here to the starter, under storage, you can see that we have the backups folder. And in that backups folder, we have the last database that I backed up. And that was earlier today. So if I want to import that, I'm going to come back into VS Code, into the terminal, and I'm going to run ddev table plus to open up my database manager. And so from here, I want to run, I just want to go import from SQL dump. I'm already here in the starter. So I'm going to grab this last one that I created earlier today and import that. Okay, so now I'm going to refresh. And so we have all of that ready to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and quit this, head back over here and refresh this page, and voila, we have that set up. So now the username and password, because it comes from my starter setup that already has that set up, it's going to be the same here. When you're running through something like this, you actually need to change your password at the very least, potentially your email or your username, what have you. Just so that you're not having the same password on multiple client sites, because that would be a major security risk. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this real quick so I can get my password from 1Password, and we'll continue after that.
12 seconds later.
All right, so I'm going to log in now. Okay, great. So you can see that down here we're running Craft CMS solo. Now, solo is fine if you're going to use Craft just for yourself. There's also a couple of other options. Now for client projects, you're going to want to go up to Pro. So here you can see that we have solo, and then there's team. Team is going to be good if it's just going to be you and a few other people. But in my experience, 99% of the time when you're building a site in Craft for a client, you're going to want to use the Pro version. So I'm going to go ahead and try this for free. You don't have to buy it right away. As long as you're working locally or even on a staging setup, then you can use the free trial. Okay, so now you can see down here, Well, it doesn't say that yet, so let's go into the dashboard, and now it says Craft CMS Pro. And I do have a bunch of plugins in here. A few of them, 4 specifically, are set up as trials within this starter. So obviously I would keep those as trials until I'm ready to launch the project, at which point we would buy the actual licenses. Speaking of those plugins, let's go ahead and go over them. So if we go into settings and then plugins, we'll just go over them one by one. So the first is CK Editor. It's really just a rich text editor. I have this paid plugin called Entry Type Rules. It's a really inexpensive plugin that allows you to set rules on your entry types. Then we have Formy, which is just a forms plugin. There are other options for forms in Craft, but I tend to lean toward Formy because it does give some additional features such as integrations with CRMs and email marketing platforms, that sort of thing. And I just really like this plugin. The next one is Hyper, which is just a link field. So it's highly customizable. I'm not going to get into the details, but it allows clients to choose to link to a page that is another entry in Craft, assets, categories, what have you. So there is a built-in field in Craft that does something similar, but it's not quite as feature-rich, which is why I use Hyper. Then there's Image Resizer, which I think is really important because when a client uploads an image, sometimes it'll just be a really large image. You know, it might be 3 megabytes, it might be 3,000 pixels wide, whatever. And so with Image Resizer, it gives you the ability to set the maximum width or height of the image is, in addition to a couple other options. Because I use Laravel Mix, I do have a Mix plugin included by default. Then we have Postmark, which is an email deliverability or delivery service. So when it comes to sending emails from a website, you can certainly use the server or use SendMail, but more often than not, that's going to cause more problems than anything. So I always these days use a delivery service. Postmark is my favorite because they do have a very generous free tier that clients are more amenable to than having to pay for another service that they may not understand the reason for it as much as you explain it to them. The last two are SEOmatic and OEmbed. SEOmatic is probably self-explanatory. It's an SEO plugin that just kind of takes your SEO to the next level in terms of all of the different things that you need from a technical SEO standpoint. And then OEmbed is really just an easy way for clients to add videos, whether it's from Vimeo or YouTube. They just grab the URL, plop it in, and then it renders as it needs to without having to tell them to grab the embed code, that sort of thing. Okay, so now that we've gone over the plugins, let's go over the file structure real quickly here. So we've got ddev, VS Code, don't need to worry about that. Then we have config, which comes with Craft. The license key is in there. The general config is in here. So this is something that you would set up with your starter so you don't have to mess with it every time. Modules, unless you're building something custom, like a custom module / plugin for your client project, then you're not going to need to worry about the modules. Folder, then public, that's webroot. I still have it set to public. Sometimes it's set to web. You can set it to whatever you want, but you'll want to do that up front. In here is where I keep assets, which is where my compiled CSS images and JavaScript go. Then we have the favicon, and then I have these htaccess files in here, but most of my projects are on servers that run Nginx and not Apache, so I typically will delete these. But if you are running a server that runs Apache, then you're going to want to copy these and modify them as needed per environment. And let's see, so then we have the source. So this is where the CSS and the JavaScript live. And then finally we have the templates folder. This is where all of the Twig templates for Craft live. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over the rest of what's in here. So if you have specific questions, let me know. Okay, now let's whip right back around to the Craft interface. And I'm going to go over the content builder that I set up for pretty much every project. So let's take a look. We have the home page, which I'm not sure if it has the content, but it doesn't even have a content area yet. So we're going to go ahead, add a new entry, and we're going to set the entry type to general page. And so we have the content tab here, and you can see that there's a title field and a heading field. Now the reason I use two of them is because you always want to have a good reference in the entry section. And it may not always be the same as the title for the front end of the site, of the page. So that's why I use heading, so that if this title doesn't, shouldn't match or doesn't match the heading that you want on the front end, then this gives the client or the author the ability to set those separately. And then the big field that I have here is the content blocks or the content builder field. So you can see that I don't have this quite set up the way that I normally would. That's something that I need to tweak on my starter. But instead of new entry, this should say new block.
12 seconds later.
And then refresh this page and you can see it now says new block. Okay, so the reason that I have a content builder is because it gives clients the ability to mix and match different sections or blocks on their page to have each page be unique, not just the content be unique, but the layout be unique as well. So for now, all I have are 3 blocks: the image block, a text block, and a video block. And if I click on one of these, we get this slide over, and you can see that we have the ability to add an image, which obviously is what we want for an image block. But later on, if I wanted to kind of expand on this, I can certainly add some other fields within the settings. Same with the text block. This just has your regular text field here, and then we have the video block. Now, the reason that this is opening up in a slide over rather than in here is just because of the settings. So if I go back into the content builder field, and I believe the view mode is set to cards, so I actually want that set as inline editable blocks. So if I save that and go back, now you can see that I've added these, but I just don't have any content in here. So this is actually a better view, in my opinion, depending on how many blocks there are. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. Now, obviously, these aren't the only blocks that I would include in a project. Depending on the design, then we're going to obviously add different blocks, such as what I call a split block. Some people call it a 50-50 block. There's probably other names for it. But this block typically includes an image on one side and text on the other, or some variation of that. Sometimes they flip. So that would be a block. Maybe there is a CTA block. I can't think of any other ones right now, but you get the point. So then clients would then be able to build their page using a combination of these blocks. Let's take a look at the templates and how that is set up. So I'm not going to go over how templates work in Craft CMS. I encourage you to read the documentation for that. But my content builder blocks live in partials content builder. So you can see in here we have the image block. So this is what would get pulled in to a specific template or page. Here's the text block, which is really straightforward, and then the video block. So the way that this would work is, for instance, on the standard page or the general page, you can see that we have we're basically going through a loop. I don't want to turn this into a Twig tutorial, but basically we're pulling in the block type every time that there's a new block. The way that this works is Craft is going to look at this entry and say, okay, there's a content builder field. Now I see this first block. And so let's say that first block is an image block. So it's going to see, okay, partials content builder, image block. I'm going to pull that in, and here's the code I want to spit out, basically. And that's really the gist of it. The reason that I have this starter is just to save a lot of time. Having these, without any styles or anything like that, just makes it faster to start on development and not having to write the same code over and over again, because then you're just repeating yourself, and that really is just a big time waster. If we go back into Craft, I know that I keep flipping back and forth, but let's go ahead and just add an image. There's no images in here, so I'm just going to grab one from the Finder. Let's see, let's go into my placeholders, and let's just do a logo. We'll just grab this one and drop it in there. And then for the video, I'm going to skip this one, so let's go ahead and delete this. And we'll just add some text. And then I'm going to create this entry. So that's actually the wrong title. So we want to do demo page, and we'll change the slug just to be consistent. So now I can view this. As you can see that it's saying that it's not able to find the template. It's looking for site pages / general page. So that tells me that the code is incorrect. So I actually need to change this template over here. I think I just had it open. This standard page should be called general page. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to rename that to general page.twig, and that should fix it. I know what's wrong. So then here in the entry where because it's looking at site pages / entry, and that's what this page is. But this code is incorrect. So this needs to be site pages / content builder / then the entry type handle. So now that I've corrected that, the page should come up, but it doesn't yet because that's actually incorrect too. So it's not content builder. I confused that with the components. So I want site pages / entry type / the entry type handle. So now this should work. But it's not because this field name is wrong. So this should be text common. So these are the little things that obviously need to be cleaned up in the starter. So we correct that, and wrong page. There we go. So obviously this it doesn't look very good, and I don't have the image showing for some reason. So let's take a look at that. Block.image. Let's make sure that that's the right handle. So it's image single. Just for demo sake, we'll do it. Go ahead and change that. And so there's no caption, so go ahead and delete that. And there's the image. Now, obviously, it's getting cropped. This isn't how I would normally include a logo, but it gives you the idea. All right, so that's not the best demo in the world, but that's okay because that's not the point of this video. The point is that this is something that I use for client projects, and it does save me setup time. And I don't mean just the Craft installation part. I'm also referring to the plugin installation, the template setup, the fields, the content builder, the sections, the entry types, all of that. So this starter actually has been battle tested, and I have used it in the real world. That all said, once I get it cleaned up, I am considering releasing it publicly so people can, use it as their own starter, refine it, fork it, whatever. So if that's something that you think that you would find useful, let me know in the comments. And if there's enough demand for it, then I'll go ahead and set aside some time to do that. I don't know when that'll be, but yeah, let me know if you want that to happen. And if this video was helpful at all, let me know as well, and I'll see you in the next one.